decided to move on to episode 3, Bridgerton episode 3, Art of the Swoon. So the episode opens with what looks to be a party. The dance was quite slow and seemed like the movements were quite deliberate, and you're like, okay, what is this all about? And then the next thing you see, the room is completely empty except Simon and Daphne. It's like, okay, so at this point it's clearly a dream, right? You realize it's a dream. But whose dream? And of course it's Daphne. Daphne is just, this is, this what was supposed to be this catalyst for her to get the best suitor has now turned into her, you kind of see her developing feelings for Simon, but you've kind of seen that for a while, so, I mean, it's not, to be completely shocked and surprised, like, oh my god, she's dreaming about him, but it is funny. So, the next thing you see is you hear the voiceover of Lady Whistledown, and she's talking about Daphne and how she now has all these suitors and how she's turning these suitors down. And while she's talking, you can you see her meeting with different potential suitors, and her basically saying thanks but no thanks. And people are questioning, like, okay, so what, are you with the hottest guy in town, or the most sought after bachelor, Simon Duke Hastings, or what's really going on? So people are kind of confused, like, is she still playing this coquettish kind of playing hard to get, or what is this really all about? And so at Featherington's, you saw Penelope. She was standing on the upper landing looking outside. You're like, well, what is she looking at? She got excited and ran downstairs, and you realized she was waiting for the mail to arrive. And obviously what she was looking for wasn't there. And you realize that she was checking the mail because Marina had written to Sir George Crane to tell him about their bundle of joy. And she has been waiting for a response from him about, what the next move is going to be. And Penelope kind of felt bad because she had to go up and tell her that, once again, there was no response. And so you can imagine that Marina is quite despondent and kind of sad because she, what are her options at this point? The Bridgertons, they're in the drawing room and they're talking about this upcoming party and how potential suitors and Lord Weaver was brought up, or Lord Hartley, about them potentially asking her to dance, and the whole thing. And they were talking about marriage, and her mother told her it's as simply as marrying someone you consider to be your friend. And Daphne felt like, oh, is it really as simple as that, Mom? Thanks. Okay. So they're at the party. Of course, Daphne and Simon are there, and they're trading quips like they always do. And as they're walking through the door, Lord Weaver walked up to Daphne and asked to dance, and of course she said yes. And as they were talking, Lord Weaver and Daphne, Simon noticed that people were kind of staring, kind of confusingly, like, what's going on? And so, of course, he decided he was going to make this loud announcement, like, must I share your attention with every dandy in the room? And, of course, she made some comment about, of course, or some of the quip she made back to him, right? And then, as Lord Weaver walked away, she was like, oh, you're playing this jealousy thing. You're doing a good job playing the role as the jealous suitor. And she kind of laughed and walked off, and you kind of see his facial expression like, he's not playing a little bit. He's serious a little bit. Just a little bit. So now Daphne is proceeding to dance. She danced with a couple of people. And what she found when she started dancing with Lord Weaver is that she would ask a question, but he really wouldn't have an answer. She asked him about how he enjoyed London, and if he's a country person or a city person, and his response was basically, that's a good question, but he never actually responded to the question, so he didn't really say too much. And so the next person she danced with was Lord Hardy, and while Lord Weaver didn't say too much, Lord Hardy talked too much, and he talked too much about what he has, his land, his money, like he was bragging, which was off-putting, and she found distasteful. And Lord Tompkins, that was a hoot. So they were dancing, and he basically said that he was close with his family, which she liked because she's close with her family. And he said so much so that, you know, when I do marry, my mother is going to come and live with my future wife and I. And Daphne was like, well, what did your father say about that? And he was like, oh, it was his suggestion. So I'm like, oh, okay, he's trying to get rid of her. Oh, okay, that was too funny. So, Daphne kind of looked, because she had this concerned look on her face, because the whole time she was dancing with each person, Simon is standing on the sidelines just watching her. And he could tell that she was not enjoying herself at all. Her face was just like, oh God, is this really what's out here? And so, eventually, Daphne, she, you know, left the woman over to stay next to Simon, and she basically had to admit that, you know, there's no chemistry between her and these other people. It was very stiff. It was very kind of, it didn't flow. Obviously, it didn't flow as well as it does between her and Simon, which I'm assuming is the point, to contrast how her, you know, her relationships are, or her interactions are with other men as opposed to Simon. Because with Simon, it seemed like it was very easy. It's very easy for them to communicate, and it seemed like they were very comfortable with each other rather quickly. Where it seemed like the other people were kind of stiff and just not, you know, lively or entertaining. And I'm like, you know, I get marriage is, you know, it's supposed to be more than that, but you go from a person who's not saying much of anything to a person who's talking too much to a person who want his mama to come and live with you guys because the dad's trying to get rid of her. Okay, honey. So while this is all going on, next thing you know, you see everybody's attention, all of the women, of course, attention being sent elsewhere, and then you find out the Prince of Prussia walks in, and so of course the women swoon. Okay, they're all trying to catch his eye, and he's there actually looking for a potential partner, a wife, and so of course they are vying for that top position, honey. And so of course Simon and Daphne are all standing on the sidelines, and it was so funny because she kind of had this one woman down to a T. She knew all her moves. Like, okay, so the prince was talking to this particular woman, and she was like, well, if you look at her, you know that she's going to look to the ground, and then she's going to look up at him, and then she's going to look away, like, you know, because he's so prestigious that she can't look him in the eye. And this woman did everything that Daphne predicted, and of course her and Simon laughed. And so the prince leaned in, and he said, and Simon was like, he's telling her that her dress is exquisite. And so Daphne was like, there's no way for you to know that. She was like, he's, you know, that's what he's going to say to every woman, because that's, I mean, I guess that's the line. It's the most common thing to say, right? So eventually, the prince makes his way over to Simon and Daphne, and he introduces himself to Daphne, and he says to her, your dress is exquisite. Your gown is exquisite. And she just burst out laughing and made some snorting noise, right? Which of course was off-putting. And then of course she had to apologize. And he said, no apologies necessary. And the person who was with him, who was like, maybe a little bit. Was that the queen? I think it was the queen. And she was like, well, maybe a little bit. And so they kind of walked off. And she walked over to Simon and was like, it's your fault. He was like, well, how did I know you would make such an unpleasant noise, right? So that was a chuckle. That's why then she snorted again. And I think made him laugh, which I thought, he probably thought that it was quite, he thought it was quite cute. But he was like, how was I supposed to know that you would make such an unpleasant sound? And so there's this shop in town where they do the custom pieces and tailoring and all of that. And so Genevieve, she's there, she's closing the place up, and then she heard noise in the back. And of course she goes to the back to see what's going on. And you see Sienna, who was Anthony's lover, she walked in, and Genevieve and Sienna know each other. And so Sienna is talking about, how, she's looking for, she has her eyes on getting another man to basically keep her, and then they start talking about Anthony and how how he lied to her, and how he kind of turned his back on her, and she's now looking for her next mark basically at this point. And so we go to Anthony. Anthony is in the parlor. They're gambling. This is all the men. They're gambling, and he actually beat Lord Featherington, which Featherington wasn't nice. It wasn't all that happy about. But Simon was there, and it seemed like they were just. It was same old, same old. They were laughing. They were having a good time. And Simon actually made the comment that I'm glad that we're able to laugh like we used to. And he was like, well, I'm still confused that you're maybe leading my sister on. And he was like, knowing you the way that I do, he said, well, Simon was like, if you know me as well as you think you do, you know that I've never been rude to a woman. I'm always polite. And he said, so what are you actually doing? He said, I'm just being polite. Nothing more to say. And Simon Anthony kind of looked at him like, okay, that was an interesting little, what does that mean exactly? And so, let you know, the entertainment arrives, which would be the women's. And Anthony saw Sienna, and he didn't stick around. He ran off and hid in the corner. But he saw her go and sit next to Simon. And so now her and Sienna and Simon are kind of talking quick, trading, conversations back and forth. And it ended with her inviting him to the theater, or just to see how she performs. And he didn't respond. It cut away, so you didn't know what his response was. So, Daphne, it's later that night. Daphne can't sleep, so she got up to get something to drink. And Anthony saw her, and wanted to make sure she was okay. And they ended up in the kitchen, right? She wanted to go get some warm milk. Now, being the little brats that they are, they didn't even know how to light the stove, so they couldn't even warm the milk. So they just decided to drink it cold, right? And she started asking him about Simon, and initially he really didn't want to say too much, but then he, told her that, he barely knew his father, he never knew his mother, and he kind of grew up alone, and he kind of he likes it that way. And he said, he told her, no matter how much you care or how much you think you feel for a person, sometimes it's just not. That doesn't mean that those two people are meant to be together. And she kind of got what he was saying, and they said their good nights, and that was that. And so the next day, Daphne is in the drawing room. She's playing the piano. She's working on some song, and then you see Marina being fitted for a dress. Genevieve is at the house fitting her for a dress. Now, what I did skip was when Penelope went in to take her the letter, to go in and tell her that she hadn't received the letter. Lady Portia walked in, and first of all, she chastised Penelope for being in there because pregnancy is catching, and then she told Marina that she was no longer going to be in confinement, that she's going to have to get out to society because they need to get her married. And so now we're here where Genevieve is there fitting her for a dress. Now Genevieve knew that she was kind of feeling a little full in the midsection, and Lady Portia said that she's been eating too much bread. But Genevieve knew what was up, but of course she wasn't going to say anything. She just went on and tried to get the corset as tight as she could get it, right? And so now they're at this party, and the prince. I don't know if it's so much a party as it was an opening or something. And so, still daytime, and, there are people outside milling around the grounds, and of course people are inside looking at the artwork. And of course, these women are all over the prince. They want to be seen, they want to be talked to, they want to be in proximity to him. So that's where they are. Lady Violet, she walked in and on the arms of Anthony, and Collins and Benedict were, right behind them. And so as they walked in, she was telling Anthony it was two women there that she thought would be suitable partners for him. But he got annoyed and kind of was like, he wasn't really trying to hear that right then. And which I find interesting because they, this time they loved making decisions for their mothers and their sisters and their nieces. And who they would consider to be their female charges. But Lord knows, don't try to tell them what's best for them, honey. They don't like that. So he really didn't like his mother. He felt like now his mother's pressuring him. And we don't know how old Anthony is at this point, but it's probably belongs to time for him to settle down and start a family. And so Eloise and Penelope are looking at this artwork, and I believe the women in there were naked. And of course, Eloise is talking about the objectification, and you know it had to be painted by a man because the women are naked and this whole thing. And so Penelope saw Marina kind of being basically pulled behind her by Lady Portia, and you saw Marina mouth, "Help me." And so Penelope found a reason to kind of leave Eloise. She was like, "Just stay here and I'll be right back." Lady Portia took Marina over and introduced her to Lord Middlethrop. It's this older, like middle-aged man, and he was quite happy to see her. But then Penelope ran over and was like, I really need to ask Marina something. Lady Portia was like, this is, that can wait. So of course Marina is like, oh no, it's important. If it's important, then she can go ahead and we can just step aside and talk. And then Middlethrop said something, and Marina whipped around and was like, I'm pretty sure I wasn't talking to you. And he was taken aback. He was like, I can't believe such a lovely girl has such an ugly countenance. And he just walked away. And of course, Lady Portia is pissed off. She called Penelope a meddlesome wench. And she told Marina that you don't understand the gravity of this situation, but you will. You being unmarried and pregnant, honey, you're not really grasping the kind of the issue, the trouble that you're in at this point. And so Daphne is walking through, the crowd, and she catches the prince's eye. And so he kind of followed her a little bit and stopped. They stopped to talk, and they stopped to talk. And she was asking him about his stay in London, and he was telling her how it's his favorite city, and she was, quite impressed because she felt like, for a man who was as good as traveled as you are to feel that London, is great, that's, actually wonderful. And then, he was talking to her, and you can kind of see her eye kind of move to the side, like she was looking at something, and you can see that it was Simon. His back was to them, but she could tell it was him. And so she told the prince, I think that you should make your rounds because I think the other women, are going to get jealous or something, she said. But he found her charming, and he, left to greet the other women, and she was able to go and find Simon. And Simon was in this room by himself, and he was looking at this artwork, and she realized that it's his artwork. Well, it's art that was owned by his family that was donated. And she realized there was something different about that particular painting, and it seemed to be his favorite painting. Because the family had donated art before, but it was something about the simplicity of the painting. It was art of like the countryside, like dust, like this, the sun is just coming up, and it was something about that. And he told her that it's important. It's a different painting because that painting actually belonged to his mother. And while she was standing there, they were looking at the artwork. She kind of talked about what that painting the feelings that it kind of stirs in her, and she talked about it, being waking up in the country and being feeling alone but not alone but not lonely. It was just something, the way that she conveyed her feelings about the work, that really got him, And so you can see they actually held hands for a minute. So you can see that there is something between them, and it doesn't seem like they're really. It's like almost like they're fighting at this point to pretend to like each other when they actually like each other. It's odd. And so they hear a noise, which just startles them, and they run out and they find out that it was just a woman who faked like she was faint, so the prince could catch her, and there was this whole scene, and he found her and was able to help her get up, and everybody applauded, and it was a whole thing, right? Okay. So of course they traded quick. They had something to say about that, and they both laughed, and like I said, they are really at ease with each other, and you don't see that in their interaction with other people. So as he was leaving, the guy who, I won't say his driver, but I guess the guy who drove the carriage was like, "Are we going to go to the theater?" Maybe he did agree to see Sienna at some point that evening. And he said, no, I'm going to head home. So that interaction with Daphne, I guess, prompted him to change, whatever plans that he had for the rest of the evening. And so the prince and the queen, they're sitting down, probably lunch, and she's talking to him about, him and Daphne, and how Daphne is the pick of the season, and she would make a perfect partner for him, and that's, he's not going to do any better in London. And he felt like, it seemed like she's already spoken for. And she basically told him that, no, you need to make this match happen, and you're a prince, so you need to charm her. Like, she really want this match between the prince and the Bridgertons for some reason. We don't know yet. We don't know why she's pushing this, but I'm assuming we're gonna find out. And so at the Bridgertons, Daphne is back in the drawing room. She's playing this song that she wrote. Eloise gets annoyed because she's sitting there trying to read her book, and then she starts, Eloise is going on about this song and how she's trying to read, and again she's talking about marriage and how you're doing all this for men, and is it wrong, that I want to do more, I want to focus more on developing my mind and being married, and they kind of have a disagreement. And Daphne, so you don't know how hard this is, and they have a little tiff, and then eventually Eloise concedes, and she says to her, asks her, okay, so do you have a name for the song? And she was like, not yet. So she was like, okay, just play the song, but if you're gonna play the song, at least come up with a name for it, right? And so Lady Portia takes Marina to like this poor side of this town where people are down and out. You have hardworking people, but they don't really make a living wage. So it's what you would consider, a slum, really. And she's trying to get Marina to understand that if she does not find a partner, a mate soon, that this is exactly where she could end up. And she even pointed out that the children who live in that area, they look poor and hungry, and they look like they're suffering. And for some reason, Marina would not be deterred. She was like, I already have a man. And Lady Portia had to tell her, okay, so has he written to you since you told him the news? And you saw Marina's facial expression change. Like, she's like, well, no, not really. And Lady Portia had to let her know, and I had to write this down because this was good. She was like, sweet child, many men make declarations of love when they want to make love. But rare is the man whose love remains true when the consequences of love making are brought to his attention. And she's trying to say, yeah, it was all fine and good to talk about love and all that, but now that it's time to deal with the outcome, it doesn't seem like he's ready. He's stepping up to the plate. And Marina, while you can kind of see the wheels in her head spinning, she really didn't want to concede, and so she just walked away. And I guess went back and got in the carriage. And so Danbury, Lady Danbury and Violet are talking, and they were talking about Mrs. Culper. She found a match, and Lady Violet was happy for that. And then behind them, you can see Simon and Daphne. And of course, they're talking, and he's talking about this prank, I guess, that Anthony had played on him, how Anthony helped him get out of trouble, and they made her laugh. And then she said that my mom said something yesterday that one should marry their dearest friend. And so he was saying, "Are you saying that I should marry Anthony?" She was like, "Well, no, that's not what I'm saying." And so while they continued talking, and they realized that there were a group of men that were kind of staring at her. And so he decided that he was going to pick this flower and give it to her and be all romantic to even draw more attention to them. And then they started talking about. She was like physical and tangible. There are physical things and tangible things that you get, non-physical and tangible things that you get in marriage and the whole thing. And she was confused. She was like, how can something be both physical and not physical and tangible? She was really confused. She was like, oh. And then he kind of joked about what I said earlier about how mothers don't talk to their daughters. And so she was like, what are you talking about? And he was like, it's really not my place to say anything. And he was like, if I was courting you properly courting you, then this conversation would never come up. And she was like, since you're not, then you can just go ahead and tell me. And then he says to her, the things that husband and wife do is just a continuation of the things that you do at night when you're alone. And she was like, what do you mean, sleep? He said, no. He said, when you touch yourself. And you kind of see her face kind of like confused, / horrified, / intrigued. Like it was a lot going on in their facial expression, right? And he said, you never touched yourself? And she, wasn't even talking about, she's, what are you doing? And eventually it made sense to her. And she realized what he was talking about masturbation. Probably shouldn't have said that in the recording, but it's in there now. But so anyway, he said that you'll figure it out or something, and he walked off. And so the next thing he's in the carriage with Lady Danbury, and Lady Danbury smacked him on his leg. And he was like, what was that for? And so she was basically saying, do you have an arrangement with Daphne or not? If you're not, and you basically get it in the way, because at this point it's known that the prince has an interest in Daphne. And she felt like if she's telling him that, her being attached to the prince will be one of the greatest, attachments that she can actually get. Any young girl can have. And she felt like if her fucking around with Simon is going to interfere with that, then she's going to be extremely upset with Simon, especially if he's not being honest and he's leading her on. And she basically told him that she would never forgive him if he's the reason why if he's the reason why Daphne missed out on that opportunity. And that's not how she raised him. And you kind of see his facial expression like, okay. Like I said, he considers her, he has a lot of respect and love and admiration for her. And he knows that she's not telling him anything wrong. Like, don't waste her time or get in the way. Especially if she has an opportunity for something better. And so you see, his wheels turning. And so, Eloise is outside smoking, and Benedict comes out again, catches her, and she starts talking to him. She was saying how she saw part of his sketchbook in the fireplace, and he was like, well, it's not good, and I'm not any good, and the whole thing. And she got really upset. She was like, if you want to sketch, if you want to do, whatever it is that you want to do in life, you want to be an artist, you want to sketch, then hire a master to teach you. And she was frustrated because she felt like as a woman, her options are limited. She wants to be a writer, but she knows that there is no chance at this point in time that it's going to be slim to none, or she's going to have to write under a pseudonym, probably a man's name, most likely. And she felt like he has the world is his oyster as a male. And he's not taking advantage of it. And she basically told him to nut up and just stop complaining and do what you need to do. And she's like, so I can live vicariously through you, right? And she made the comment about Lady Whistledown, how no one knows how even Lady Whistledown has to write under pseudonym. He was like, well, she has to, because for the amount of crap that she writes, if people knew who she was, she'd be strung up. And then he asked her, you can be honest with me, are you Lady Whistledown? So she told him no, but if I were, do you think I would admit it? And she kind of walked off, and he chuckled a little bit. But she was right. She was like, don't come complaining to me about your life when you have far more options than I will ever have. Take advantage of it. Like, grow up. Grow some nuts. Get out my face. I don't want to hear you complaining. So, that night, Daphne went on and locked her door, and she experienced what Simon talked about. She went ahead and did the do, right? And so the next morning, she's in the drawing room, and she played her little song, and she finally finished it, and the mom was like, oh, you finally finished the song. And of course, Eloise is sitting there, okay, so do you have a name yet for the song? And Daphne's, she's all aglow, right? I guess because she's experienced this new thing. I guess it helped her creativity flow, right? So she was able to finish that song, and she was feeling real good, right? So on this high, she go to meet with Simon, and they started talking, and she was talking about what they initially had planned, and then he basically just cut her off and basically said that he was going to cut off all contact with her, and she's confused, and he was like, the whole point was for you to have a number of suitors, a lot of options to choose from. You have that, so my agreement has been fulfilled. And she was like, well, what happened? Did I do something? And he said, no, your brother was right. I am a rake, and it's not good for me to be around you because I don't want to corrupt you. And she said, I'm able to make decisions when it comes to my propriety and a whole thing. And he kind of looked at her, and she was like, at least, at the very least, I thought we were friends. And he said, no, we're not friends. We were never friends. How could you ever think that we were ever friends? And he basically said that you were a person of, just somewhat of convenience while I was here taking care of business. And now that I have, I'm actually leaving town. And he walked off and left her on the curb, devastated. And so you saw him, he went home. And he basically told his footman that he's going to, he's going to finish up whatever he needs to finish up, and that he was leaving London that night. And Daphne went home, and she went in, she's crying, and so one of the servants saw her and kind of ran behind her to see if she was okay. And she just went in her room and bawled her eyes out. And he basically told the man that she didn't say anything. She just cried. She didn't want to be bothered. She didn't want to talk to anybody. She just, at that point, just wanted to be left alone. So we're at the theater, and Sienna is performing, and she's singing the song. Of course, it's captivating everyone. She has everyone's attention, and she, got a standing ovation. And so later that night, she was backstage, I guess, getting dressed to leave, and one of the people, I guess, that worked at the theater came through and told her that there was a guy to see her. She thought it was Simon, but it was Anthony. And Anthony's, talking about how he missed her, and that she was asking him about the Duke, and she was like, I should have known the only reason that you would come here is because you're jealous, and the Duke hasn't made any, advances towards me, and why don't you go back to, whatever your family obligations and the whole thing. And she said, you're going to marry, and you're going to have a family, and, I will always be the woman that you would make love to at night, but never in the day. And she walked off. She was like, I was fooled by you once, but I can't allow myself to be fooled by you again. And she walked off and left him standing there. And I mean, good for you. Good for you. So, at the Featheringtons, Penelope, again, she's standing on the landing waiting for the mail to be delivered. She runs downstairs. There's a letter for Marina. So she is so excited. She runs upstairs. She gives Marina the letter. Marina is excited. She rips it open. And you can tell by Marina's face that it was not what she wanted to hear. Penelope is like, what happened? Penelope is like, was he killed? What happened? And so she told her that he basically said that he was not going to, that he didn't want anything to do with her or the baby, and that it's not his problem, it's her problem. And she, of course, is devastated. And, of course, Penelope is hurt, too. Because, like I said, Penelope seems to be the only decent one out of the whole damn family, right? And so she lets out this scream/cry that would just break your heart. She was so devastated. And Lady Portia is in her room, and one of her maids are, helping her do her makeup, and they heard her let out this cry. And the maid was like, do you think we did the right thing? Lady Portia, and I'm gonna say the maid helped too, but it was under the urging of Lady Portia. This bitch forged this letter and had this letter sent to the house so that Marina would let go of this idea that Sir George Crane was ever going to come back to save her, and so that she can move on and marry somebody else. And Lady Portia's like, it's time for her to realize who men really are. And the servant actually felt, you could see the concern on her face. Initially, she said that what happens if Sir George Crane actually returns, and finds out. And she was like, if he does return, he won't be coming to collect her. And, Lady Portia was like, this is for the best. And you could see the concern. And the maid knew that was wrong. She knew that was wrong. But what is exactly she was going to do? She don't have any power. So Daphne and her mom are in the shop. Daphne's getting fitted for a dress for the upcoming ball. And there was a lady that came in and was like, oh, we heard that, Daphne caught the eye of the Duke, and her daughter caught the eye of the Prince. And she was like, well, my daughter will have the wealth, your daughter has the face, or something she said. And if something clicked in Daphne's mind that, you know what, I'm going to do what people want me to do. I'm going to be beautiful and conciliatory, and I'm going to be that person, right? And so she got home, and the dress that was tailored that day, she told the maid she's not going to wear that. There was another dress she was going to wear, and how she wanted her hair and the whole thing. And so while she's getting dressed, the mom, Lady Violet's already dressed. She's going to the study, and she talked to Anthony. Anthony is working on something, and she asked him if he was going to go to the ball. And he said that he did receive an invitation, and then she gave him a list. And it was a list of 14 suitable matches of women from good families. And he basically thanked her for the suggestions. And she said, do you have the time? And he was like, what are you talking about? He said, your father's, because he had his father's pocket watch. And she said, I saw you looking at it when I walked in. It's an exquisite piece, right? And so he gave her the time, and she basically told him, she said, and then she made the comment, the time is of the essence. Basically, it's time for you to do what you're supposed to do. And she walked off, and he got that. But, again, he felt like he doesn't like being told what to do, right? He didn't say anything disrespectful to her or anything, but you can tell by his facial expression that he getting sick of her meddling, so to speak. So now they're at the ball, and of course they're dancing, and the prince is dancing with that woman's daughter, and it seems like everything is all good. And Marina is there, and she was asked to dance by Lord Darby, I believe it was Lord Darby, the one that Daphne was dancing with, who was bragging about all his riches or whatever. He asked Marina to dance, and she accepted. And then Daphne made her entrance in this gorgeous white gown, and she gets this fan with the feathers, and of course, she's standing as you enter, and then you walk down the stairs. Everyone stopped to look at her, including the prince. And so as she was walking down the stairs, and especially all the men were watching her as she walked down the stairs, and the women, if looks could kill, she would have been dead. She would have been shot 900 times, because all the women were shooting looks at her like, no, she didn't, but she did. And the prince left old girl and walked over to meet Daphne at the bottom of the stairs. And he's, basically said that he would love to have her first dance. And she played the game. She accidentally, on purpose, dropped her fan, and he dropped to his knee and picked up her fan, and he handed it up to her. And the whole time this is going on, Simon is standing there. His face is all, you can tell that he's hurt, he's angry. Lady Danbury standing next to him. She's confused. And she's like, you're a fool. And so, he leads her to the floor, and they dance. And Simon walked out. And as he walked out, he walked past Lady Violet. And even Lady Violet was confused. And, that's pretty much how this episode ends. So, oh boy. So, like I said, it's a good show. Every episode is better than the next. And I can't wait to see episode 4. So, I'm going to end this here, and I will talk to you guys later.